What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Round. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. Week 9 in the books. Coach, it is wild and crazy out there. How are you?
It is wild and crazy. It makes it fun. You don't really have anything you can hang your hat on week in and week out. I mean, the NFL wants parity, wants this kind of excitement, and they're getting it.
Roger Goodell's sitting up there in his ivory tower, just like he's just wringing his hands, like, this is exactly what it kind of reminds me of the Simpsons. Excellent.
Mr. Burns, Mr. Burns.
That is Roger Goodell as he's watching the National Football League play out week to week, and it is a week-to-week league, and that's what we're going to talk about in the first topic here. Top-tier teams losing. I mean, when you think about it, the Indianapolis Colts, who most considered was the hottest team in the AFC, if not the NFL, they go to Pittsburgh and lose 27-20, turn it over 6 times in the process. The Green Bay Packers, and I think is more shocking, they host the Carolina Panthers at Lambeau. They're wearing those god-awful throwbacks with the stupid helmets. They lose to the Panthers on a walk-off field goal. The Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy's a quarterback. Everyone thinks Detroit's going to roll. They lose. And then maybe we'll throw in the Chiefs losing to the Bills. But, Coach, what do you think about these top-tier teams in the AFC and NFC losing their games in Week 9?
And first of all, the Steelers deserved to lose to the Packers the week before because of the awful uniforms they wore. And then the Packers turned around and deserved to lose. If you wear those ridiculous uniforms, you deserve to lose. But seriously, I agree with you. I'm a little more surprised at what happened in Green Bay. The Steelers have this tendency, if anybody out there is a Steelers fan or follows them, to lose games you kind of feel they should win, and then every once in a while they'll win a game you feel like they should lose. And that was kind of a circle the wagons type game where there's a lot of public criticism, and they had their team, meetings, and the veterans like Ramsey and Hayward spoke out. And you kind of feel like, man, the Steelers were able to kind of rally around each other. But I did not at all see that one coming. Carolina went into Lambeau, a 13.5-point underdog, and beat them outright. And I haven't watched a lot of that game. I just actually started to go through the All-22. I'm going to do a film room on that game tomorrow. But what it looks like is they confused the heck out of Jordan Love. I mean, they mixed their looks and they got pressure with 4. When you can get pressure with 4 guys in the NFL and then just drop 7 in coverage, I mean, that's a tremendous advantage. So Carolina, if they're 5-4, they're in the thick of it in the playoff race in the NFC. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think Dave Canales has done a phenomenal job there of getting Bryce Young to play pretty good football and rallying a team that, 2 years ago was the worst in football.
Well, let's also not forget that the Minnesota Vikings were 9.5-point underdogs in their game against the Lions. And in case you didn't know, this was in Detroit, and the Vikings win 27-24. I didn't get to see a lot of this game, so I'm not going to lie, but I have seen highlights and stuff of that nature. What was your takeaway from the Lions losing this game where they were heavily favored?
So, I mean, Minnesota's formula was a great one when you want to pull an upset. Pressure the quarterback, 5 sacks of Jared Goff, and then even more importantly, get off the field on third down. The Lions went 5 out of 17 on third down. And that is huge because when you give a good offense like Detroit the opportunity to extend drives, bad things are going to happen. I mean, they're going to score. And so, you do that great work on first and second down to put them in a third down situation. It's deflating when over and over again they convert that third down. So by Minnesota being able to get off the field, they were able to work the clock. They got a lead early on, so they didn't have to put the whole game on J.J. McCarthy's shoulders. He was coming back. It was really a great recipe for pulling an upset, right? Opportunistic defense, don't turn the ball over on offense, and it's a division game. And we know how those things go, man. Like those games are always going to be tight. So, again, surprising, absolutely. But for me, not as stunning as what Carolina did.
No, it's not. But I got to give credit to J.J. McCarthy. I know the Vikings fan base has been wondering, what do we have with this guy? Because they saw him in a very small sample size earlier this season. He's hurt. and he has to sit out for a lot of it. It was a good game for him, a good stepping stone. But let's talk a little bit about the game of the week. I don't think anyone would argue that Chiefs Bills in Orchard Park was the game of the week. The Bills win 28-21, and this game at one point looked like it was going to be a rout, and then the Chiefs just continue to stay with it. This was not a great game for the Chiefs offense. Patrick Mahomes, he was 15 of 34, coach, and he didn't even throw a touchdown. He was picked off. What's your takeaway from this game, Chiefs Bills? Obviously, two upper echelon AFC teams.
Yeah, I think the Bills did everyone a public service because nobody's rooting for the Chiefs, and now for the Chiefs to now be 5-4. I mean, I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but their margin for error has certainly been reduced. If the playoffs started today, the Chiefs would be on the outside looking in. And that is something everybody's rooting for because nobody wants to play the Chiefs. They're just so good in those single elimination tournaments. If you're Buffalo, obviously you're encouraged by your performance. Josh Allen played great football, 23 out of 26, throwing the ball. I mean, really good football. But this has been there, done that for the Bills. They've now beaten Kansas City 5 straight times in the regular season, but they've lost to Kansas City 4 straight times in the postseason. So if you are Kansas City, you probably have to feel a little bit like, okay, fine, but beat us when it really matters.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. And that's why on another podcast I do with Wesley Coleman, I talked about how I pick the Bills because they always win in the regular season. See me in the playoffs if they play again, because that's a different story. Now, okay, let's trend back and look at these teams again. Indianapolis, Green Bay, Detroit, Kansas City. We know that Green Bay's loss might have been the worst of the 4, but out of these teams, was there any performance that you saw and said, maybe this team isn't what we thought? Is there anything like that from you after these top tier teams lose?
Yeah, I think the Steelers may have exposed Daniel Jones a little bit.
Okay.
You mean 5 sacks and 6 turnovers, and a couple of those interceptions were just where Daniel Jones just straight up got fooled. There's one that he threw right into the chest of Steelers linebacker Peyton Wilson, where it was man coverage, and Jones expected Wilson to do one thing, and Wilson kind of fell back in and did another. The Steelers didn't get overly complicated with their scheme, but the pressure that they were able to put on with their pass rush forced Jones into some bad decisions. And that was what doomed Daniel Jones in New York, was that he would just make the big mistake at the untimely moment. And so if you can take Jonathan Taylor away, Pittsburgh did a really good job of stuffing the run, held Jonathan Taylor to 40-some rushing yards, and forced Daniel Jones to beat you. There's still questions about whether or not he can in big moments. And I think that will be the thing for Indianapolis going forward that will be a little bit of a concern.
And something that was discussed a lot during the game, if you listen to Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt, they have the Colts' upcoming schedules is not easy. They play in Berlin against the Falcons this upcoming Sunday. Then they have their bye. They come out of the bye week. They have to go to Arrowhead. Then they host the Texans. Then they have to go to Jacksonville, go to Seattle, host the 49ers, and then they have Jacksonville and Houston to finish out the regular season. They're 7-2 right now. But, Coach, I mean, that's a tough slate, is it not?
It is. I mean, and you've got Jacksonville right on your heels now in the division, just a game back. So, they need to keep winning. And we're going to find out about the Colts, obviously, over the next several weeks. They're a good story, but they're a team that has not really done it yet. So what are they? Are they kind of this year's version of the Commanders, a team that's maybe caught lightning in a bottle a little bit, but ultimately won't be able to play with the big boys down the stretch? Or are they for real? We don't know that answer yet.
I've always said the running game can travel, but if you shut it down, like the Steelers, kind of like you said, gave a little blueprint there. We'll see. But let's go to our next topic. Hey, we love talking about kickers on this show. I mean, who doesn't love talking about kickers? New NFL record, 68-yard field goal by the Jacksonville Jaguars' Cam Little. And we talked before we hit record. This is the same guy that hit a 70-yarder in the preseason against Pittsburgh down in Jacksonville. What do you think of that 68-yard field goal? This was against the Raiders in an overtime victory.
It is amazing how much time we have devoted on this show to kickers. And hey, give the kickers their due, right? They are doing things that have never been done in the sport of football before. The 60-yard field goal is now just normal. Yeah. Like, you don't even when it used to be like if somebody hit a 60-yard field goal, you were blown away by that. And now we just kind of go, yeah, I mean, 62-yard field goal is the new 52-yard field goal. 52-yard field goals are layups these days. NFL kickers are making them at around an 80% clip. I think the thing that jumped out to me about Cam Little's kick, Jacksonville didn't even cross midfield on that possession. The line of scrimmage was their own 49-yard line. So like, in the NBA, Jeff, where like the NBA 3-point shooters have gotten so good that you sometimes see them out like on the fringe of the logo, hitting 3-pointers. Well, that the NFL is the same deal now. If you get to the logo, you're potentially in field goal range.
The thing is, and there's a lot of people that will see this and they'll say they need to change it. We need to overhaul it. We need the field goal post to be moved together closer or whatever. This is a NFL situation that is very similar to other situations. You either have a good kicker or you don't. I mean, let's go back to Thursday Night Football. The Ravens beat the Dolphins. It was a blowout. It wasn't even close. But there was a point in that game where the Dolphins were hanging around. They had to. They were going for it on fourth down. They jumped off sides. They had to settle for a chip shot field goal, and their kicker missed like a 29-yarder. So that tells me, okay, you just missed a chip shot. So you either have a Cam Little or a Chris Boswell or a Brandon Aubrey or at once upon a time a Justin Tucker when he was with Baltimore and in his prime, or you don't. I don't think that this is a situation where the NFL needs to make any drastic changes, but it does change the way the end of the games are handled by far. It's incredible. Coach, it used to be if you had less than a minute with no timeouts left, you were done. Now, if you have, I don't know, I think the Chiefs had something like less than a minute left with no timeouts, and they were able to still get in range for a couple Hail Mary passes. And when you have a kicker like that, can blast a 68-yarder, it changes everything, does it not?
Yeah, especially when you consider the new kickoff rules.
Yeah.
So if you score with 30 seconds left and you have to kick off to your opponent, the average starting field position now out of kickoffs is out past the 30-yard line. So let's say you start your drive on the 32-yard line. You got to make 20 yards, 25 yards for a lot of these kickers to be in field goal range. And you can easily do that in 20 seconds, 25 seconds. So there's no lead unless you score in the last 10 seconds. That is safe with the way these kickers are these days.
The only thing they have to change, and this is not even a field goal kick, they need to change the onside kick. The onside kick, which they have to declare now, which I hate, it's become a formality. That the Indianapolis Colts had 2 against the Steelers on Sunday, which they didn't recover either. I wish they would have the surprise onside kick was still a thing, but nonetheless, enough.
I agree. However, we have 2 weeks in a row now. We've had an onside kick recover.
True. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's going to lead us into a team that did recover an onside kick for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are historically bad on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to read you a couple statistics. The Bengals are the first team to score 38 or more points in back-to-back games and lose both since their 1966 New York Giants. That's right. They scored 38 points or more. Last week, the New York Jets, they lose 39-38. This past Sunday against the Bears, they lose 47-42. Unbelievable stuff. The Bengals have allowed 500 or more yards in 3 games. The rest of the league has done it just twice. And they're doing it behind Joe Flacco, who is having a career renaissance. He has the most passing yards in a single game by any player 40 years or older. On Sunday against the Bears, he threw for 470 yards. Coach, what do you make of this horrible Cincinnati defense?
On my Monday morning game balls episode of my Call Sheet podcast, I gave a game ball to the Cincinnati Bengals for trying to experiment with simply not playing defense, right? I mean, just basically saying, all right, when we go on defense, we're just going to let you score so we can get the ball back and try to score more, because that's that. And this is another topic you and I have been talking about since the summer. We were blown away by the amount of money Cincinnati sunk into the offensive side of the ball. And then nickel and dime Trey Hendrickson, when he was trying to get his contract extension done, they just have not shown any interest in building a defense. And obviously it's catching up to them. I mean, they're on pace right now to give up more points than any team in NFL history. They're on pace to give up 566 points. This is interesting. The Panthers set the record last year. They gave up 534 points. Cincinnati's given up 33 points a game. So 16 games will get them to the record. They won't even need the 17th game in order to top the record. And it's a shame if you're a Bengals fan because you do have this phenomenal offense. Obviously, Joe Burrow being out is an issue, but Flacco has more than pulled his own weight there. But how do you compete? How do you legitimately compete when you can't stop teams? Did you see the play that they gave up to Colston Loveland for the touchdown?
Oh, yes.
Awesome. I mean, it's like Keystone Cops, man. I mean, they got like 5 guys around the ball. 2 defenders ran into each other. Loveland spun out, ran for their – it's awful defense.
It's like watching The Little Giants for those fans of the 90s movie. Yeah. But here's the Bengals philosophy. And I've talked to Bengals fans, and they own this. They know it's fact. They basically said, we're going to pay everyone on offense, the T. Higgins, the Jamar Chase, the Joe Burrow. We're going to pay them all. And we're going to basically rebuild our defense through the draft. And they've tried. So listen to this. The last year, they spent the first 2 picks on the defensive side of the football. Shamar Stewart in round 1, Demetrius Knight in round 2. I'm just going to focus on the first 3 picks. Then you go back to 2024. The Chris Jenkins signing in the defensive line was a 2nd-round pick, and then McKinley Jackson in the 3rd round. Then you go to 2023. Their top 3 picks were all on the defensive side of the ball. Miles Murphy, DJ Turner, and Jordan Battle. Go back to 2022. Top 3 picks all on the defensive side of the ball. Daxton Hill, Cam Taylor Britt, and Zach Carter. I could go back, but you understand what I'm saying. They are trying. The organization is failing because they're missing on these draft picks. They're not playing out. And so what you're having is this lopsided team that is so, not just financially, but from a skill perspective, the scales are tipped so hard towards the offense. I don't know. I saw a lot of clips from the locker room after the Bengals lost to the Bears, and some teams, they were visibly furious and upset. I don't blame the offensive guys. You're putting up 47 points and you're losing. And that's, I think Chase Brown said, just get one effing stop. That's all you need. I don't know, Coach, if you're the coach of this team, how do you even wrap your head around trying to move forward with this defense?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's not like they haven't tried to fortify the defense through the draft. It's just that they just keep missing. I mean, their number 1 pick this year, Shamar Stewart, they draft a guy who the number 1 criticism of him coming out of Texas A&M was that the film doesn't match the measurables, like he looks like a dude. He looks like you chiseled an edge rusher out of a block of granite. And when he goes through the testing and all that stuff, you say to yourself, this guy's going to be a man. And then you turn on the film and nothing pops. Well, this year, Shamar Stewart in total has 6 tackles, no sacks, no hurry, nothing. I mean, he's doing nothing for them. So, I don't know if he will. And remember, he held out weirdly throughout a lot of the preseason. Yeah. It just feels like there's always that kind of drama with the Bengals in some way, shape, or form. They can't nail the culture. And obviously, their emphasis on offense isn't working.
And they're going to lose Trey Hendrickson. I wouldn't be shocked if they trade him. If they try and trade him at the deadline, and we'll talk about the trade.
Which means they very well might trade him.
Until a team says we'll give you a 3rd for him, and then they'll say, sure, why not? Because he's going to be a free agent anyways. I think when you look at this team, like you bring up Shamar Stewart, he's the prime example. And some would say this dude's just a workout warrior. We've all seen those players that they show out at the combine and they have the look, like you said, everything. But he didn't even have production in college. Like, who is scouting these players? And that's why there's a lot of Bengals fans that feel like Zach Taylor needs to go. The front office needs to go, and they need an overhaul. But let me ask you this. Is Zach Taylor on the hot seat?
I don't know. It's hard to answer that question because there's always the caveat. Well, he doesn't have Joe Burrow. Yeah, and I mean, if they had Burrow, would they be able to, would they be in a different position? Would they have won that game 50-47 yesterday instead of losing it 47-42? I don't know. I mean, for me, how much input does Zach Taylor have in the construction of the roster, et cetera? I think that is an important question to answer because somebody's got to be accountable for the fact that this defense is so awful. They brought Al Golden in as the DC. He's been in college for most of his career. I mean, this is a guy who made his bones at Temple and then Miami. He was the DC for Notre Dame last year. I've heard Al Golden at clinics. Brilliant dude. I mean, really understands football, but he hasn't done it in the NFL. The NFL is a very different animal than college. So is that a problem? I mean, it just feels like organizationally they can't nail the essentials.
Yeah. It's bad. It is historically bad for the Cincinnati Bengals, but let's move on. After week 9, is there anything, Coach, that you can say that you are sure of in the NFL heading into week 10? Like anything. Like it could be this team is the worst team in the league. I would find that difficult to say because I mean, there's a lot of potential teams that are bad, but I don't know if I could say the worst, nor could you say this team is the best. What, if anything, are you sure about in the NFL?
I'm sure the NFL is getting what they want. Like we said at the beginning of the show, not only here we are, we're 9 weeks in, so we're roughly at the halfway point of an 18-week season. We are at the halfway point. Not only do you have no undefeated teams, you don't have any one-loss teams anymore. Everybody has at least 2 losses. And that creates the parity that this league desires. I think one thing that you can hang your hat on is this. You can still say that you need an elite quarterback to be one of the, on that short list of teams that can win the championship. The adage defense wins championships, there is some truth to that. But that is no longer, the primary absolute. The primary absolute is you have to have a high-level quarterback to win at a high level. And the number of teams who do are the ones that we often talk about as being the competitors. You look at a team like the Steelers, who are 5-3, who are struggling on defense. Why are they leading the AFC North? Well, largely because they're getting the most competent quarterback play that they've gotten in several years from Aaron Rodgers. So it's still a quarterback league, and that's still the thing that you can rely on. Beyond that, I don't know. Well, I mean, what is your takeaway?
Well, I want to piggyback something you said, that every NFL team now has 2 losses. It's the first time that has happened before week 10 since 2010. Like, that's remarkable. The parity in the NFL, I, honest to God, cannot give you much absolute other than the fact of, well, I'm pretty sure that if I give you an absolute is the Buffalo Bills are going to make the playoffs and they're going to be a really tough team to beat. That's an absolute. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to make the playoffs and they're going to be a really tough team to beat. But I can't tell you as we sit here going into week 10 that I could tell you. I had someone ask me just not too long ago, who do you think for the Super Bowl? I said, I have no idea. I have no clue. I could give you a list of teams that I think have a legitimate shot and those that don't, but I have no clue. I think this, and again, we've said it a million times, not just on this show, but all the shows that we've done. This is what the league wants. They want every fan to always have to tune in to see what's going to happen because you don't know week in and week out. I can't be sure of anything in that regard, Coach. Absolutely nothing. And that's a weird place.
I agree. You mentioned Buffalo and Philly. Those are the 2 teams I picked to be in the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. And I think the reason I picked them was because it felt like in a league where the turnover is constant, those are stable franchises who have been doing it successfully for a while now. And you could throw, obviously, the Chiefs into that mix. The reason I didn't put them in the Super Bowl is just I felt like the attrition would eventually catch up to them. But, yeah, man, I mean, most of the league changes quickly. I mean, look at Carolina. 2 years ago, they were horrendous, the worst team in the league. And here they are 5-4, having just knocked off the Packers in Lambeau. I mean, your fortunes change very quickly in the NFL.
Absolutely. All right, let's pivot. Unless we talked about the Eagles, and the NFL trade deadline is coming up tomorrow, Tuesday, November 4th, and trades are already happening. We saw the Steelers trade for Kyle Duggar. There's been some other trades as of Monday morning. The Eagles, they sent a 3rd-round draft pick to the Miami Dolphins for edge rusher Jalen Phillips. He's the oft-injured linebacker. Coach, what's your thought about the trade deadline and what might be happening or maybe not happening in the NFL around the league?
Well, I think it's interesting because the NFL used to be a league where you just didn't see trades.
Right.
Teams were very protective of their own. They felt like, the way that you get good is you draft your guys and you develop them and they play in your system. And that whole idea of like systems, it was like sacrosanct to NFL insiders that everybody was very protective of what they did and none of the secrets got out, so to speak. But it's not like that anymore. All these players train together, have the same agents, things along those lines. So it's not quite as it used to be. Now, with the trade deadline coming up, the big question is who's going to be a seller? With so many teams still in the mix, there's probably less sellers now than there have been in the past. If you're the Browns, are you a seller? Would you entertain an offer for Myles Garrett? That's one of the rumors. I saw something that they put out there on The Athletic that said that Cleveland is adamant it will not trade Myles Garrett. And maybe that's true, or maybe that's them trying to drive up a deal for somebody. I just think the issue becomes there's a very, very small number of teams we know that could be selling right now. And then who are those players? Maybe the Saints are going to, make Chris Olave available. Maybe the Dolphins will make more of their players available. People are inquiring about Jalen Waddle. But it doesn't feel like there's that many teams right now that are willing to trade because I think most of these teams feel like they still have a shot.
I'm curious about a team like the Giants. That they're struggling, but they have a young quarterback, a coach who's trying to cling to any success he can get to keep his job. What are they willing to kind of part ways with if someone does call and say, hey, we want a defensive lineman or an edge rusher, which they do have a very good defense. It's going to be fascinating. I find myself agreeing with you in the fact that I gear myself more towards who is selling than who is buying. Who's
Right.
going to look to add to their team. A team like the Steelers is going to want both secondary help and potential wide receiver help. You have other teams that are just looking like the Eagles. They've made a trade with the Baltimore Ravens. They got Jair Alexander as a cornerback. They're going to be trying to solidify their roster as best they can for a stretch run to the Super Bowl. It's interesting. And I know a lot of teams don't want to give up quality draft picks. But when you look at what Howie Roseman's doing, he's been more than willing to part ways with draft compensation, but he also has a lot of it stockpiled. And so he's not making a bad decision. It's going to be really interesting. We'll talk next week about the trade deadline, who improved the most and who didn't. Any final thoughts on that though, Coach?
Yeah, I agree with your point. We could probably go down a list and name 20 teams that want something. Chargers, right. Joe Alt out again.
Yep.
They probably want O-line help. Lions want defensive line help. You mentioned the Giants. Would they move Kayvon Thibodeau? Excellent defensive lineman, but he's coming to the end of his contract. Do they feel as though maybe we got to move on now before we lose him in free agency? I think you'll still see a couple of recognizable names get moved, but I think the activity will probably be limited because, again, limited goods on the market, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, let's finish this up with a sad player profile and the fact that it's involving around an injury. And it's Jaden Daniels, who on Sunday Night Football in Week 9, he suffered a dislocated elbow, pretty gruesome injury, but it was to his left non-throwing arm. Therefore, there's some people are saying that he'll go on IR, but his season isn't technically over. The Commanders seem to be spiraling out of control, though. Marshawn Lattimore is rumored to have a torn ACL. They're already banged up when you talk about Deebo Samuel has missed time, and then Terry McLaurin has missed a lot of time. But Jaden Daniels, though, even when he was healthy, didn't look the same. And a lot of people predicted a sophomore slump for the quarterback. What's your takeaway on Jaden Daniels?
I guess the fear right now is that Jaden Daniels is going to wind up being Robert Griffin 2.0. That RG3 had a great rookie year, kind of took the league by storm when the read option and all that stuff was really just kind of trickling up, but couldn't stay healthy. Now, Jaden Daniels is bigger, taller than Robert Griffin. He's 6'4". They list him at 200 pounds. They say he's more like 190.
Yeah.
He is obviously very slightly built, and now we're seeing the injuries start to pile up on him. And obviously the concern will be whether or not those injuries will impact his ability to play the game at a high level for a long period of time. And that certainly derailed Robert Griffin's career.
And with the Commanders, it's lousy that it happens. It's on prime time. these quarterbacks, they do get caught up with. I got to make that very clear. Like typically when a rookie quarterback has a strong season, the next year the league kind of catches up with them. You saw it with CJ Stroud. I think the only times you don't see a sophomore slump is if their rookie season is not maybe what a lot of people expected. So we're seeing Drake May as an example. He did not play great for a pretty bad Patriots team last year, and he's turning it on this year. I don't know. Sophomore slump, whatever you want to call it, second year curse. Jaden Daniels, this is going to be a season to forget. And there might be if I'm the Commanders and this season continues to spiral out of control, I'm not bringing him back this year. What's the use? If he's going to be on the shelf for 6 to 7 weeks with this elbow injury and you come back and you've lost a lot of games, wouldn't you just shelve him, coach, and just say, get healthy and get ready for next year?
Yeah. I think an interesting thing they have to address is whether or not they believe Cliff Kingsbury and his offense is the best thing for Jaden Daniels in the long term. Kingsbury was in the NFL before with Arizona, didn't do particularly well. His college offense, Big 12, scoring 40-something points a game, putting up, crazy numbers. But does that translate into the NFL? Do you expose your quarterback to too many hits? Is too much on the shoulders of the quarterback? Do they need a coordinator who will build a little bit more of an NFL-friendly offense around Jaden Daniels? That'll be an interesting question for them to answer in the offseason.
The Commanders are 3-6. They go into a game on Sunday at 4:25 against the Lions at home. Obviously, it's going to be Marcus Mariota, quarterback. Then they go to Madrid and play the Dolphins. Then after their bye week, they have the Broncos at home, the Vikings, the Giants, Eagles. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Just shut them down.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the use? But okay, coach, it's been a good show. What's coming up on the Call Sheet podcast this week?
So we did our Monday morning game balls episode yesterday, Whiteboard Wednesday with Coach Frank Lasasso, and then our Hot Route episode on Friday with Pez. And, that's kind of our normal lineup for the regular season, and been doing a ton of video work. Steelers fans, I put a ton of stuff up on my X, broke down Pittsburgh's defense on Monday. Today, I'm breaking down the offense from their game against Indianapolis. I'm also going to dive in today on that Carolina-Green Bay game. What did the Panthers do to frustrate Jordan Love? I think that's an interesting film study as well.
If you want to check out all of our coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can check us out at Steel Curtain Network and steelcurtainnetwork.com. That website is free and it's updated multiple times a day, steelcurtainnetwork.com, and obviously wherever you get your podcast. But Coach, another great show. Enjoy Week 10. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.